Folks, Colin Kaepernick was not wrong with the stance he took as far as taking a knee in opposition to the way that the criminal justice system and police in general act. Now, in my opinion, there are only two types of police officers. There are good cops and bad cops. And in my opinion, the majority of the cops out there, if they abide by the illegal criminal activity of bad cops, even though they don't participate actively themselves, I have to consider them as being bad cops. The good cops are the ones that don't turn a blind eye to illegal activity, racism, etc., and say something. Now, again, they put themselves in jeopardy because of the good old boy or the thin blue line or silence amongst co-conspirators. And for that, we need to thank the ones who actually step up and say something. Now, I'm going to give you two stories. One, I'm going to give you a story on the police who shot a man in Mesquite, Texas, and wounded him. Thank God they didn't kill him. But I'm going to just give you what was initially put out, and then I'm going to give you the follow-up.
And Mesquite are working to gather more information on an officer-involved shooting that started as a burglary call. CBS 11's Brittany Jeffers joins us live at police headquarters with the latest on the investigation and the suspect's condition. Brittany.
Russ, I just checked in with police and they tell me that they're going to spend the day going over body cam video, dash cam video, even checking nearby businesses to see if there's any surveillance that might help in this investigation. But they do say that that suspect continued to fight officers even after he was wounded and cuffed. Now, police were originally called out to the 1300 block of Southtown East Boulevard after someone in that industrial area reported that they saw a man trying to break into a vehicle. When the officer arrived, that suspect was sitting in a truck and the alarm was going off. Now, at some point, officers say that the two got into a scuffle. The officer fired his pistol, hitting the suspect. They say that man continued to fight even after additional officers showed up to help.
I think that I'm not an expert on human strength, but I think if after somebody has been shot and handcuffed and is on the ground, if it still takes 4 large men to hold him down, then that would indicate that maybe there's some other factors in play.
I'm also told that that suspect was taken to the hospital. He underwent surgery this morning and is stable, but at this point his name as well as the officer's name have not yet been released. Reporting live here in Mesquite, I'm Brittany Jeffers, CBS 11 News.
Now, you'll notice, and I'm going to read the full story to you. You'll notice that that police officer stated that the man was shot, handcuffed, but that something else had to be involved for a man to continue to struggle when 4 large police officers basically jumped on him after being obviously shot and handcuffed. Well, all that police officer was trying to do was to prejudice whatever jury might be impaneled and to make a statement that the quote-unquote suspect must have been on some type of drugs, because that's the only way a man can struggle against. Sorry about that.
Reward for the winner of the Big 12 rival.
Sorry about that. That's the only way that a man can struggle against 4 police officers. I am here to tell you, folks, that I was arrested once. I had 5 police officers jump on me, okay? I had no drugs in my system. I had not even had a drink, okay? And I was able to struggle against 5 police officers, and I am not a big man. Now, true enough, you know, I wasn't swinging or being offensive. I was being totally defensive against the 5. But I was able to struggle against them. Now, let me read for you the entire initial story. Authorities in Mesquite are investigating an incident that involved a police officer shooting and injuring a man who was suspected of breaking into a pickup truck. It all started at around 7 p.m. on Wednesday night when police were called to the 1300 block of Southtown East Boulevard for someone setting off a car alarm. When an officer arrived at the scene, he located the suspect sitting inside of a pickup truck as the vehicle security alarm was sounding. The officer confronted the suspect and things then escalated quickly. That scuffle led to the officer firing his weapon and striking the man at least one time. However, the suspect continued to fight with officers even after he was wounded and placed into handcuffs. Police stated that the man demonstrated such physical strength that it took 3 officers just to hold him down until paramedics could arrive at the scene to assess his injuries. Now here's the part where that cop basically is trying to indicate that the guy was on drugs. I think that, I'm not an expert on human strength, but I think that if someone has been shot and handcuffed and on the ground and it still takes 4 large men to hold him down, that might indicate there are other factors in place, added Lieutenant Brian Parrish with the Mesquite Police Department. The suspect was taken to a nearby hospital and is now in stable condition after undergoing surgery. Officials have not released the name of that injured individual or the name of the officer who fired the shot. Authorities plan to review body camera and dashboard camera video and see if there is possible surveillance camera footage to assist in their investigations. Okay, that was the initial story that was put out there on the 9th of November. Now, just reading that story, you would think that the cops basically caught a criminal breaking into a pickup truck and that this guy had to be on drugs in order to resist the cops. You also had to think that the guy had to be the dumbest ass in the world to be sitting in the vehicle with the alarm going off. But I digress. A couple of days later, okay, the real story comes out. Truck owner shot by Mesquite officer during burglary investigation. Mesquite police dropped the charge against a man who was shot by police last week. Last Wednesday's shooting put Lindell Jones in the hospital. On Tuesday, he was charged with evading arrest, but by Thursday afternoon, the charge was dropped. Oh, but what happened to the breaking into the vehicle or the burglary attempt? That, for some reason, was never even put into the record. The Mesquite Police Department is conducting its own investigation into an officer-involved shooting last week. The department says Jones was shot when officers went to investigate reports of a truck burglary last Wednesday off of Town East Boulevard near Galloway Parkway. It's near the shooting range that I go to. Mesquite police say they received a 911 call about a man breaking into vehicles, plural, in the 1300 block of Southtown East Boulevard. When they arrived on the scene, police say Jones was sitting in a truck and the alarm was going off. People now say it was his own truck. Investigators have been tight-lipped, only saying an altercation turned into a scuffle with Jones as he tried to run off, and that turned into a police shooting. Okay, really? The man is going to run off from his own truck. Jones struggled so much, police say it took 3 officers to subdue him. That piece I might be able to believe. Police did not say how many times Jones was shot, but his attorneys say he was shot in the stomach and in the back. His attorneys say Jones accidentally triggered the alarm to his own truck and could not shut it off. They say he was trying to explain the issue when he was shot, and he ends up being shot for sitting in his own car, said attorney Justin Moore. He still is just very confused and angry, of course. I would be angry as well. Attorneys for Jones are frustrated that he's been handcuffed to his hospital bed all weekend, even though he wasn't facing any charges until Tuesday. Jones's family is upset because they have been unable to visit him in the hospital since he was shot last Wednesday evening. It's extremely frustrating. It's heartbreaking, said Carmen Jones, Lindell's sister, and we don't even find out about him for 2 days, and here it is 2 more days, and we still can't see him. I can say that the officer made contact with the individual. An altercation and scuffle began, explained Mesquite Police Lieutenant Brian Parrish, and the individual ended up being shot. Oh, what happened to all the comments about this guy's quote-unquote superhuman strength and other factors being involved? All of a sudden, that's not being said. Jones was released from the hospital Tuesday night and spoke to Fox 4 as he was leaving. I ain't angry. I just want to know why. I didn't do nothing. He had no reason, so why? It wasn't right. Now I got to figure out how to survive, get to work, and make some money. I can't because I got shot for nothing. Police say Jones was unarmed. The officer that shot him is a 10-year patrol officer named Derek Wiley. Oh, we got his name now. Jones's attorneys are upset Mesquite investigators spoke with him in the hospital without his lawyers being present. Mesquite police say criminal investigators were interviewing Jones about him being shot by the officer, not about any criminal wrongdoing on his part. It's unclear what exactly happened during the time Jones got out of his truck and when he was shot, or why police still have not questioned Officer Wiley about the shooting. Police are reviewing the dash cam video and body cam. Police officer Derek Wiley is on paid administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. Okay, folks, thank God this brother is still alive, okay? Because the way that bullets travel, he could have been shot in the front, in the abdomen, which is what they claim, and also in the back. And that bullet could have traveled and zigzagged anywhere, went through lungs, hearts, or other vital organs, and it potentially did. And this man might not be here merely because he set off the alarm in his own truck, and the bullshit police decided that they weren't going to listen to anything that he had to say, and the officer pulled out a gun and shot him. The guy probably ran because, based on everything that's going on, he was in fear for his life. And more than likely, he ran after he got shot the first time. But that being said, there's another story out there about the police department, not here in Mesquite, Texas, but in Chicago. 15 men exonerated in one day and 7 Chicago cops taken off the street. Exonerations came 4 years after federal conviction of ex-Sergeant Ronald Watts. The drug convictions of 15 men in Chicago have been thrown out after they claim they were framed years earlier by a police sergeant who went to prison for a related crime and his team of officers. The dismissal of charges against the men, who together had 18 convictions, is believed to be the first ever mass exoneration in Cook County, the nation's second most populous county. In these cases, we concluded, unfortunately, the police were not being truthful, and we couldn't have confidence in the integrity of their reports and their testimony, and so, in good conscience, we could not see these convictions stand, Mark Rotert of the Cook County Conviction Integrity Unit said in a news conference. 7 other officers have been placed on desk duty pending an internal review of more incidents, the Chicago Police Department told CNN. These officers all worked under Watts, CNN affiliate WBBM reported. Robert of the state attorney's office said his team is now reviewing additional cases connected to drug convictions spanning several years. The men whose charges were tossed alleged that Watts and his team of officers planted drugs on them during arrest between 2003 and 2008, then falsified police reports leading to their convictions, according to the Exoneration Project, a free legal clinic at the University of Chicago Law School that presented the cases to county prosecutors. A Cook County judge on Thursday approved prosecutors' decision to drop the charges. All the men had already served their sentences for the crimes in question, according to the Exoneration Project. 14 are free and 1 remains incarcerated on unrelated charges. One of the men Leonard Gibson said he was framed by Watts on drug charges and went to jail twice because of the officer. If you're not going to pay Watts, you are going to jail, Gibson recalled. I went to jail and did 2 years and 24 months for Watts. I came home and he put another case on me. Gibson's attorney, Joshua Tepfer of the Exoneration Project, said officers took money from and charged dozens of people for crimes they did not commit. They were skimming off people, and anyone who would get in their way, they would frame them, he told CNN, and anyone who tried to report them, they would frame them. Watts and then Officer Colin Muhammad pleaded guilty in federal court in 2013 and 2012, respectively, in connection with stealing money from a drug suspect who turned out to be an FBI informant. Watts was sentenced to 22 months in prison. Muhammad got 18 months. CNN could not immediately reach Watts or Muhammad, who both have served their sentences. It wasn't until the summer of 2015, though, that Tepfer, the law clinic attorney, learned of the case of Ben Baker and started investigating. What I learned is what Ben Baker said happened to him, that he was framed by this officer who was named Sergeant Ronald Watts. And what I learned right away was that Ronald Watts had been convicted federally of exactly what Ben said had happened to him, being shaken down and framing someone for putting drugs on someone. I started to look into it, and what we slowly realized, this was ongoing, systematic, day-to-day corruption by not just Sergeant Watts and not just his federally convicted co-defendant, Officer Colin Muhammad, but by a whole crew of officers that went on with impunity for over a decade on the South Side Chicago housing projects. Baker was freed last year after nearly 10 years in prison when the state attorney dropped drug charges that Baker claimed were concocted by Watts and his crew. It was torture, Baker told CNN of his jail time. You're thinking in your heart, how did this happen? How did I go from laying next to my wife and going out with my kids every day to being in this cell every day? Baker last year filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the city of Chicago and 17 officers for framing him and covering it up for the decade he sat in prison. The suit also alleges that a code of silence within the Chicago Police Department allowed Watts to run an extortion ring with impunity. Yeah, folks, and Chicago is not the only place that this is occurring. And I am willing to say, at a minimum, at least 10% of the people that are incarcerated are innocent. They were framed. And the criminal justice system and the judiciary system has gone along with it. Hopefully this brother wins, and there's no reason why he should not win his lawsuit, and at least receive some type of a monetary settlement. But how much money, truthfully, is 10 years of your life worth? I mean, a lot of people say, yeah, fine, you know, I can do a year for $1 million or, you know, $5 million. But 10 years, 10 years when you are somewhere in the vicinity of your physical prime, 10 years when you're still out there able to watch your kids grow up, 10 years where you don't have any type of contact, physical contact with your wife, that 10 years, folks, you cannot get that back. And I wouldn't take $50 million for 10 years of my life as far as being free, being able to go out and party like I wanted to, being able to enjoy and watch my daughter grow up and be at every single function that she had. You do not replace 10 years of your life with cash. Will it make your future life easier? Without a doubt it will. But I'm willing to bet you there are not too many people on this planet that would be willing to take money and sit in jail, be subject to all kinds of abuse, both by other prisoners and by the jail guards or whatever you want to call them, and basically just not be free. So again, Colin, Please keep shining that light. We need that light shined even